My name is Missy Wrigley. My name is Missy Wrigley, and I am a consultant at the State Education Resource Center. So I'm not State Department, but I work very, very closely with the State Department. As Tracy said, my main area that I work in at CERC is secondary transition, although we do a lot of different things. As a special education teacher by trade, anytime there's something going on with the IEP, then I'm working with that too, because that is definitely an area that I find very interesting. So what I will be doing today is sharing secondary transition with you, but I will put in some pieces of the new IEP that we will be all having next year. And so I will share some of that as it relates to transition services that are being provided. I can't share too much yet because they're still in the process of, we just went through a whole pilot study. And so different schools made different suggestions. So they're correcting all those things and adding suggestions in there, making edits. So we will see what it comes out as in January when the training starts. Okay, so I would like to get a little bit of an idea of who I have in the audience. If you are a family member, let me see, are you familiar with, all right, in Zoom, under reactions, let's see if I can find my reactions. Under reactions, you can raise your hand. So you can see my little hand is right there. If you are a family member with a student with a disability, can you raise your hand? Or, there we go. I got thumbs up, there you go. All right. If you are an educator and you do not have a student with a disability, can you raise your hand? Okay, I kept my hand up because I'm an educator and I also have a student with a disability, so I qualify for both. All right, who am I missing? Did I not cover everybody? Do we have any administrators in our house? I saw a cup of coffee and what was that? There was a little cup of coffee I saw very briefly. I thought it looked like that was cool. All right, so we have a couple of administrators. Very good. Oh, I should unraise my hand because I'm not an administrator. Never wanted to be. All right, thank you. All right, the other way you can, if you do have a question and you want to ask, you can raise your hand at any time. It pops you right to the front of the line here, and I can call on you to answer your question. What I did put in the chat for you. So Jenny and Hillary, do you have questions? Or you just have your hand still raised? Okay.
I think they might just have their hand still raised. And just so you know, another member of the group just commented that they're here to learn, which I think is really admirable. So.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you that I learn something new every day from every single one of my sessions. So I'm here to learn from you also. So I appreciate that. In the chat, I did include this Google link. And on that link, you will find all of the resources that I am going to be talking about today. And I will actually put it in again for those that are just coming in. But let me just show you. So in here, it's a Google link. Number 1 down here on the bottom, I haven't yet figured out how to get it to go up on the top, but whatever, is the presentation that I will be sharing today. And then we have our Bill of Rights, the flow chart that you will see in the presentation. Our Connecticut core transition skills are there. We have our COP core. Oh, nope, those aren't supposed to be core team meeting dates. I will change those because those aren't, you're supposed to have the COP meeting dates. So I will change those for you. This is the dates for our Introduction to Life course. Here are the dates for our Transition Community of Practice Transition Tuesdays. And here is the flyer for our symposium. And I am going to remove this one for you, and I will add the other one in there. Okay, I will do that afterwards. So all of that information is there for you, and I'll actually be sharing it throughout the session. Okay. Okay. So basically what I'm going to start off just sharing with you is the legislative updates that we've had, because we've had several of them that have had a direct influence on secondary transition. And when we talk about students' rights and responsibilities, they have some very important responsibilities when it comes to secondary transition. Families have important responsibilities, but the student also has to have those responsibilities. We will talk about all of the different components of secondary transition, what that looks like. I will give you some examples. I have a few slides in here about Level Up for your information if you're involved with Level Up services at this point. If your student is involved with Level Up, do you have, Tracy, you have Level Up that comes into your district? Do you have a consultant?
On a student by student basis.
Okay, all right. So that is an important piece. Let me just add that link back into chat. Oh, Tracy, you did. You're one step ahead of me. Very good. Thank you. All right. Because I know that as people come in, they can't see what's already been in chat. So, all right. So secondary transition, when we talk about that, is really looking at each individual student, but creating their vision. So what are they going to be doing out in the community? What are they going to be doing as far as post-secondary education? Are they going to go to college? Are they going into some kind of training program that's part of an employment option that they want to do? Are they going right out into the world of work? What does that look like for each student, and how are we helping them create and be successful with that vision that they've created? On our transition website, and I'll show you that, our State Department website, I will show you that in a few minutes. But there's a section there that has all of the requirements, all of the legislation. So we have the federal legislation as well as the state and the Connecticut general statutes, all of these pieces that are here. You can find them on the State Department's website. Within the PowerPoint, these are all direct links. So if you're interested in taking a look at that, they're linked for you also. Probably one of the most important pieces that we've had as far as legislative updates is that now all students with disabilities begin transition planning at age 14. So when I first started teaching, that's what it was. And so back in 2004, Connecticut decided to go with the federal regulations, and that is 16. And so if you remember correctly, we started with students with autism, could go to 14, and then Connecticut thankfully decided to bring all students at age 14 to start their transition planning. So I was just at I had another session earlier, and I was speaking to somebody from Wyoming, and they're still at 16. And so they were envious that we had gone to 14. When we talk about transition planning, we need to have measurable post-secondary goals, and we will review those. And we also need to make sure that we are addressing the students' course of study and what services that we are offering them. The other sometimes confusing regulation that just happened was as a result of AR versus Connecticut State Board of Ed and the court decision that came out. And so in the past, we used to have services went to the student until they were until age 21. What districts usually always allowed was that it went through the year to the end of the school year that student was 21 years of age. So it has changed now. The student is provided services up through age 22. So it's actually services stop on their 22nd birthday. So it is 14 through 21. And they stop at the student's 22nd birthday. So if the student's 22nd birthday is in October, then the services stop. If their birthday is October 18th, then services stop on October 17th. Okay. It's nice if they have a birthday that's in March or April or May, then they could go throughout the whole year and they would finish those on the 22nd birthday then. So that's really an important decision that the PPT members, including the family and the student, need to decide what's happening with the student if their birthday is September 30th. What's going to happen with services for that student. You can find out a lot more. There's a direct link here to the Special Education Bureau of Special Ed that gives you more guidance on this particular call. So I know that many districts have some questions and families have questions about it. And we have our new IEP form, which I honestly am extremely excited about. I think that it's much more family friendly, educator friendly. It offers a nice, strong alignment between goals that are written. I think it will be much easier for students to understand. I'm a firm believer that students need to be reading their IEPs also, so they need to be able to understand that. This is a direct link that will lead you to the State Department's website. This is an August 2021 version of the IEP. It has been updated and tweaked since then, but that is the newest version that's online. It will, I would assume that they're going to put an updated version online on the website in January, but don't hold me to that. We have the new, what we're calling Connecticut CTSEDS, which is the whole data system that Connecticut and all districts in Connecticut are participating in and what that looks like. What's nice about that is that there's going to be a parent portal there for families. So all of the information that families need, you can get right there. And so hopefully it will be an easy way for families to navigate all of the process and the pieces that are there. Gail, we will get to what level up is in just a few minutes. Okay. And so I think it will be easier because all of the information will be right there in the portal. I have not seen Connecticut CTSEDS yet. I've only seen bits and pieces in my IEP training. And so I haven't gone through the training, and I don't think districts have. I think districts will start that training April maybe, or June. I don't know. Tracy.
So yeah, I can jump in. There will be training this spring that's happening for school staff. And then part of it is we need to see exactly what this new system looks like, which we have a little bit of a glimpse of, but we don't have all of the nuances yet. As soon as we have that, and as soon as we know what the parent portal will look like, we will be sharing that information with families in a separate session. I know you're giving this as a backdrop for the transition discussion, but quite frankly, this system will ultimately become a whole nother separate discussion that requires a conversation about how to go through it. And we're just not quite there yet, but more information to come I'm hoping by this spring.
Yes, and there are modules that have been created to help family members go through that whole process. There's training that's been created. Family members, there's been pilots, so family members have gone through and offered suggestions about it. So they're still kind of tweaking it now to make sure that it's, easily understood by all that's involved. So I think it'll be good. It's going to be a learning process, no doubt, but I think it will be good. I think it'll be good. This is one of the graphics that I took out of the new IEP training. I really do like that. It really does encompass all of the different parts of the IEP. And as you've been growing up with your children through the years with an IEP, you've become more familiar with all of these parts, the present levels, annual goals, and what that looks like. Today, our focus is on secondary transition. Note that once a student is involved with secondary transition, and this may lay right in the middle of our chart, but it really affects every single thing that surrounds it. And so once that student is transition age, then we need to look at all of these areas through that transition lens to make sure that we are preparing the student for outcomes that they want to have when they leave high school. In your Google Drive that I showed you, you do have a copy of the very outdated Bill of Rights. I say that, but it's just the 2016. It's the first version. This has been updated. It will come out, I believe, in January with the new IEP training. At least that's what I was told. I haven't seen it yet. It will not have major changes to what's in the Bill of Rights. The only thing that's going to be updated pertaining to those new regulations that I talked to you about, as well as anything related to the new IEP, and that will be represented in the Bill of Rights. Okay, and while it says it's for parents, one of the very first lines in there is that the student has the right to, and so it really outlines what the student's rights are in education in school. This is what I refer to as our flow chart. So when we talk about secondary transition planning, this is our steps. This is our process. If we're looking at how are we providing transition services for our students, then we're looking at age-appropriate transition assessments, and we're starting there. And with those assessments, we're identifying needs and strengths and preferences that the student has, as well as their interests, so that we can try to find out what it is that they would like to pursue once they leave school. We're hoping to make a good match. If the student is comfortable with what they are pursuing, then we can then write measurable, I didn't put the updated one in here. They can write measurable post-secondary outcome goals. We used to call them post-school outcome goal statements. They are now called post-secondary outcome goals in the new IEP. Connecticut was the only state in the country that ever called them post-school outcome goals. And so post-school outcome goal statements. And so now we're going back to post-secondary outcomes, which the rest of the country calls them. So we know that the student must have one written for career and employment and one for post-secondary education training, and if needed, independent living. From that, then we write measurable annual goals. Within all of that, we need to explore all of these pieces: student success plan, the student's course of study, what services we're providing them, what related services, OT, PT, social work, whatever the student needs to be successful, as well as working with adult and community services and agencies, Level Up, which we'll talk about. So we have ADS or BRS, which most people refer to it as, DDS, the Department of Developmental Services, DEMIS for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. So whatever agency we need for that student to be more successful, we need to make sure that we are incorporating that collaboration with them. Okay. So when we're talking about transition assessments, it could be anything. It could be a checklist. And so one thing that as a family member, you need to be aware of is that they may ask you to help complete a transition assessment in the home to see how the student is doing things at home. You know, so might be completing a checklist of how the student is doing their chores or getting dressed, or, you know, what skills they have at home. And so helping them out with that. But how, you know, it could be a transition assessment. Let's say the student wants to go into, I'll use my daughter as an example. My daughter has several different interests. She's 10. We have a set of twins. They're both, you know, they're 10 years old, a boy and a girl. And so my daughter wants to go into possibly writing, but she's also very much musically inclined. And so she's always singing. So maybe in high school, she's part of chorus. And maybe there's some kind of presentation or some kind of thing that they have to do, an assessment as part of that music program that she's involved with. That can be a transition assessment if indeed she's written a goal that upon exiting high school, I am going to register or into, what is a music school? I don't know. All right. And so just taking a look at what courses the student is taking, what assessments are being done, if those courses support whatever the student wants to do when they leave school, then those can be counted as transition assessments. And so those are some important pieces. I had a young man, his name was Tommy, in high school, and he was taking foods classes because he wanted to go into culinary arts. And so any of his major assignments, midterm projects that he had to create, any of those were transition assessments because they were supporting him being successful in his post-secondary outcome goal. Okay. So all of those are important. But you see commonly on your IEP interest inventories. You might see a situational assessment if they were on the job and there was checklists or something of that nature. You might see a larger assessment called the transition planning inventory or the Brigance. All of those assessments are transition assessments. Okay. What we have to remember is it's not something that's just done once a year. It's an ongoing process that happens throughout the year. And so one assessment might tell us something about a student, which leads to doing another assessment. Something that they're doing in school or in class or out on the workforce might tell us that we need a different assessment, and then that's going to assist us with more assessments. Okay. One way to take a look at another type of assessment is go ahead in your hand raising or your thumbs up or down. How many of you have ever participated in a person-centered planning option with a student, whether it be your student or your child or your student in school? So like a MAPS or a PATH or some kind of person-centered planning option. Has anybody ever participated in one of those?
Yeah, I think the type of process that would be most familiar to this group is futures planning.
Oh, futures planning. Okay. All right.
But I know not all have participated in that.
Okay. Heather, raise your hand. Ingrid says no. Okay. So let me just show you a couple of those that we do in Connecticut. And I didn't, well, I'll mention futures in just a minute. We do MAPS. So we have a training for MAPS and PATH. So this is a MAPS is what you come out with. All of the person-centered planning options involve having the student identify what is their goal, what is their dream, what is it that they want to achieve, and then what are some barriers that might stop them from achieving those things, and then what are the skills that they have to help get rid of some of those barriers. What networking, what people, what family, what do they have that will help them do that also, and then creating some kind of action plan. So this is a map. This one here is a path. It does things a little bit differently in that it's a backward process. So you set your goals up here, and then you come back to the now and you say, okay, what am I going to do next week to get to that? What am I going to do 3 months from now? What am I going to do 6 months from now to get me to that goal? And so it's really an important piece with a student. And then many districts have taken and utilize Charting the Life course, and we do a lot of training, and I included the flyer for the Introduction to Charting the Life course in your Google Drive. The training is being held throughout the state at lots of different rests. They're all virtual. I'm pretty sure they're all virtual. So you can pick one for whatever date best suits you if you'd like to learn more about Charting the Life course. But it is, Connecticut is really supporting all districts being involved with Charting the Life course. We also have had training in Renew, and that's where you use the futures planning in Renew. And so it is a person-centered planning option designed specifically for students with mental health or behavior issues. And so that becomes a little bit different than most person-centered planning sessions. Most of them have a team that gets together to work with a student. With Renew, it is one facilitator and the student. They work together, they go through all of the mapping, then they create their goals. Once the goals are created, they bring together a small team that will help them to achieve each of those goals. And so that works at it a little bit differently because it's extremely student-centered and working with the students there. We offered this training a couple years back. We did not offer it last year. I am hoping beyond hope that we'll able to bring it back next year. But it does require quite, it's more intensive training for a district. You have to really guarantee a team and administrators to work on it for a good 6 months to a year to really work with the students to get through the process. So, but it's an excellent program. This is more about Charting the Life course. While it has some excellent tools, it really is about the conversation and working with the students and their families to help establish that vision.
Can I just jump in for a second, Missy? We're getting some questions. Some I think are answerable in the chat, which I've tried to do. I think this latest question is an excellent question. I think it requires a little bit of discussion in that, and maybe you can speak to this more than I can, but these processes sort of depend on the student and their needs. Not everyone goes through the processes that we're outlining tonight. This is sort of the entire menu, and school teams should discuss what is most appropriate. And I know it's not a solid answer for you, JC, but your age question is similar. It depends. For some students, we're starting very intensively at a middle school level, and in other cases, more of the work is happening at the high school level. So it is a PPT discussion and decision, but this should hopefully give you an overall look at the landscape of what kinds of supports, what kinds of assessments, what kinds of planning processes can happen. And then, we can have a student by student discussion about what is most appropriate. So I hope that kind of answers that one.
Yeah, for the person-centered planning options, I've seen a MAPS or PATH be appropriate for as low as third grade. And so it can be, it really is student dependent, as Tracy was talking about. Renew is basically high school students, although they are doing some work with Renew at the middle school level. But it's basically designed for high school students. Charting a life course is birth through aging. And so charting the life course is as a sentence states down here, it's for anyone regardless of age or ability. And so that's where the conversation and the discussion comes in, and some of the tools that you utilize. And when you click on this brings you to, I believe, the Missouri website, and it shows you all of the different resources that are there. But each of our RESTs, Learn, ACEs, Ed Advance, all of them, they have trainers, as well as myself, who are called ambassadors that can train you on this. They have ambassadors. I personally can't do that, but the RESTs ambassadors can go into districts and work with families and students around charting a life course, and what that looks like. So, okay. When we talk about transition planning, Tracy, let me get some clarification, because I know there was some confusion about time. Are we going, so is this 6 to 7, or is this 6:30 to 7:30? Am I going till 7:30, or do I only have 10 minutes? That's my question for you.
You do not only have 10 minutes. I think we really got started. Most people elected to stay on, which I appreciate. We got started around 6:15. I think that should be the goal, but I mean, if you're able to stay on a little bit longer, I'm happy to do that as well if there are questions.
I have a wealth of knowledge here for you, so I will try to get through as much of this as possible, but you have all of the resources. PPT membership is probably the most important piece that I consider when we're talking about secondary transition, because when I talk about who should be a part of the PPT, the student needs to be there, and that is real important. And they need to start as early as possible. As I told you, my kids are 10. My boy is a young man with an IEP, and he has been to 4 or 5 of his PPTs already. So he is involved with the process. Not that he knows a lot about it, and he does not stay for the whole session. It is just a short part when we're talking about what he's doing in school right now. But as he's growing older, he is getting more involved and understanding more of what we're talking about. So it is extremely important that the student, and we really can't wait till the student gets in high school, because basically one of my students told me, listen, why should I go? You've been making my decisions for me my whole life. Why should I start making them now? And so that's what a young man had told me at the high school level. So I did talk him into going, and so we did have a good meeting. But the other part is a representative of any participating agency that can be invited, should be invited. And family members, please note that no outside participating agency can be invited by the school without your written consent. So there has to be a conversation with you and agreement on who is invited. Although you as a family member can bring anybody you want to the PPT. It would be nice if you would let them know that you are bringing somebody, but you can bring anybody to the PPT meeting. Okay. And this is what it looks like in the new IEP. Is the student in attendance? Yes or no? What is a summary of the student's preferences and interests? Because that has to be identified if the student isn't there. Were any outside agencies invited? Yes or no? And has any participating agency agreed to provide or pay for services? And so those are the pieces that are in the new IEP, and that's kind of what it looks like. Then we talk about student-directed IEP, self-advocacy, self-determination. This is probably one of the most important areas that I think gets the least amount of attention when we're talking about goal writing and services for students. We need to give students their voice when it comes to supporting them with services in school. And so how are we allowing them to effectively communicate what their decisions are? How are we supporting them in doing that? We do have some programs that help to build student leadership. So this is a Special Education Youth Advisory Council. It's called YAC. I don't know if they call it YAC or not. But so this is with school age students. And so they have focus groups. I've participated in a few of those. They have an annual youth leadership summit, which is absolutely awesome and amazing. Nicole Vital is one of the consultants at CERC. She's the person who is in charge of that. And she works very closely with the State Department to lead that. So if a district is interested, or if the students are interested in being part of that, they can. The other one is our Secondary Transition Youth Advisory Board. And so that's our YAB. Those are also, some are high school students, but they also move beyond high school. And so they're younger youth, older youth, somewhere between 24, 25, 26. Actually, depending on, they don't really like to leave them, let them go. So they become mentors and they hang around and they do some great stuff. This particular group is awesome. They'll come into your classroom. They'll speak to your youth. They're just awesome. They've gone to Delaware and they've spoken at a transition conference. One of the young men did a presentation to the main group. They came to North Carolina at our transition conference a few years back, and they did a whole keynote presentation there. It's an awesome group of individuals. Michael Scanlon, Allie Kerner are the ones that are leading that. They both work at CPAC, and their contact information is there. So if you have a youth who has leadership skills and would like to use them, or would like to learn some leadership skills and to build those self-advocacy skills, they could contact Michael or Allie and see about joining the group. And then as far as outside agencies go, it really depends on the student, but they really help to provide services for that student and identifying whatever outside community agency needs to be invited, or providing services for the student once they leave school. When we talk about, and this might be when we get into level up, that's when we're talking about pre-employment skills. So level up is through the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services, which is part of the Department of Aging and Disability Services. So it used to be DOORS a while back, but now it's ADS, and but it's part of the Bureau of Rehab. Now, for a student to participate in level up, they need to be ages 16 to 22. All right. Even though transition services start at age 14 for our students. Oh, hi, Eric. Nice to see you. There's a familiar
Sorry,
face.
I'm late, everybody. Well, the whole family is under the weather here. Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, that's all right. It's just nice to see a familiar face. Yeah. So when we have level up services, don't start till age 16 because it's a federally run program. And so the federal, age for transition services is age 16, all right? And so basically when we're talking about level up, we're talking about one of the counselors coming in, working with the transition teacher or case manager to provide services with the student. They can provide small group services. They can provide one-on-one services. I had the wonderful pleasure of working with a level up counselor a couple years back. We worked several months together working with students. I got back into the classrooms. It was fun, although it was all virtual. Unfortunately, with COVID, we had to do this all virtually, but it was nice talking to students and working with students again. But they work with things on assistive technology, career and job exploration, counseling. They will sign up they'll have the students do informational interviews where they actually meet professionals in a career interest that they have. They will do job shadowing experiences. Now these are, when I used to teach my transition class as a special ed teacher, these were things that I automatically did. I mean, I did with my students. But it's really nice, I think, that if you have a level up counselor that will come in and support, it just gives you an extra person to come in there and do that. They will do peer mentoring. There's a whole self-advocacy unit that they work with the students. And they have a work-based learning experience. So this is a short-term work experience. It is a typical teen job. It's not in the career interests of their choice. This is just a typical, down at Walgreens or whatever is local to them. Might be a local restaurant or whatever, but they work at just those. Minimal support is provided, although some support will be provided at the beginning, but just helping them navigate the work experience. The one thing that I did see is that some students, because they did so well at the work base, they were actually hired afterwards to stay on and as a part-time position while they were still in school. So, it's really some good stuff. Workplace readiness training. One of the coolest things that yep.
Can I just interrupt? You have
Absolutely.
two very good questions in the chat. So the first question is about, do these services that you're describing continue into college? Which, I mean, I can certainly answer that question. When students graduate, they exit special education. And so these particular services don't translate into a college experience. I can say that there are colleges and universities that have different types of programs to prepare students also for life beyond college. But this particular presentation is about the work in specifically Connecticut public schools. And then there's another question about Level Up and how that process is initiated, if that happens by the parents or if that happens through the school. Eric, I know you just got here. I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, and how decisions are made about whether Level Up is appropriate for a student, sort of in broad strokes.
I think that it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think that it's really about kind of planning, together. And I think that in my particular role, that's one of the things, JC, that I'd hope to be part of those conversations and really share with you, options that are available to be connected for organizations outside of school. So. It really is student specific. But that said, I think as far as getting those connections to be made, that's something that I can be useful for, so that you don't have to feel like you're just searching for resources on your own.
So that's something that the parents would come to you, Eric, and ask about?
Sure, and I think it can go both ways. I've recently sent BRS application materials directly to families, and it's kind of initiated through me. So yeah, I mean, it's not a great answer, but I think, but really what I'm trying to say is it can go both ways. If a family says we're interested in this, then it's kind of can be my job to make that connection happen, and also knowing what's available. That I can certainly recommend things to families too.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, I've seen it done both ways when I was working with Level Up. So we had some sessions that were, as part of a school program. And so we had small groups and we were working, with the case manager, the transition person within the district, and setting up programs to work with the students. There were also a few cases where the student was working and it was more just with the families and it wasn't part of a school. So they met, again, this was all virtually when I was working with them, but they met just one-on-one with the student, and the counselor and the family members were sometimes there or sometimes not there, but it was set up more at a family because they wanted that to happen and it didn't happen in the school system. And some of that was because the student didn't want to participate in the school system, so it's very individualized for the student. And so you really just have to go with what it is the student needs.
And just a note, because we didn't get a chance to introduce Eric, for those of you who haven't met Eric, he is our amazing transition coordinator. He is new to district this year, so maybe has not had an opportunity to meet all of you. He's an incredible resource, and I know that he's made himself available to families with questions. So we are here to support this process, and he's one very important piece to that puzzle. So.
And he's been at every single transition thing I've done in the last 3 months. So he is good.
I will say, I'm trying to learn as much as I can. And truly, I think that one of the functions of an event like this is one, to capitalize on Missy's really deep understanding of post-secondary transition. I mean, she is in many ways an oracle and guru on the matter. But I also think that, I know it's really tough to do when we're meeting virtually, but to develop our Weston community too, I think is so important.
Thank you, Craig.
Because, at no point, and myself included, we won't know everything. I think Missy's maybe one person who does, but the rest of us are just trying to piece together things. And I think that for all of you to know that I'm a resource that's always available to you, but then also you can be resources, to each other. So that's kind of one of the hopes for doing these meetings. Hopefully we can get together in person sooner rather than later, so we can put names to faces and kind of feel that energy. But anyway, yeah, thank you for introducing me, Tracy. Nice to kind of meet everybody.
And one thing that you said, Eric, which is very true, and no, I don't know everything, but I do know how to find out, right? And so when you have a question about something, then oftentimes you'll contact me or someone else. If families have questions, they contact. If I have a question, I go right to the State Department and I ask them, so it's not a matter of knowing everything, although I've been working with transition for so many years now, but it's forever changing. There's so many years, and it's changed dramatically since I was teaching, as far as what we're offering and the services that are available. So it's just knowing where to find the answers. And so I'm here to help you and all of you to hopefully find the answers, or at least know where to go to find the answers. And so if I can do that, then it's a win-win for all of us. Okay. All right. So just some important things to know, just to finalize the level up piece. Transportation is a part of level up, but they cannot pay for transportation. Although sometimes I hear rumors about things in the summer that they may be able to do that because you can do the summer work-based learning program. But that doesn't happen all of the time. So that's just a question to have with the level up counselor as far as whether or not transportation is provided. Okay, so let's get to the actual IEP and the goals for transition planning and what that looks like on the students' IEPs and writing those. So we have, I told you, we have post-secondary outcome goal statements. And so you must have two. You must have one related to post-secondary education and training, and you must have one related to employment. When appropriate, you could also have one for independent living skills. I don't know of any student where that wouldn't be appropriate for, but it's not mandated, okay? What's important for us to remember is that post-secondary outcome goals are those things that the student is hoping to achieve when they leave high school. All right, so whether that be upon graduation at 18 or whether that be upon exiting an 18 to 21 program, then that's when post-school outcome goals are established. And so it's what they hope to do. I think I have some, oh, this is what it looks like in the new IEP. So does the student require specially designed instruction in independent living skills? If the answer is no, then this part disappears and you don't see it. That's a nice part about the new IEP is if it's not relevant to the individual student, you won't see those parts of the IEP. So there aren't pages in the new IEP, there's sections. So if the student isn't transition age, you won't see any of this transition part as part of your IEP. Unlike what you do now, there's always a page 6 there, whether your student is in 4th grade or 5th grade, you'll see the page 6 transition planning page. You won't see that in the new IEP. It just speaks to the relevance of the student. So this is where you would find the post-secondary outcome goal statements written. And from that, so I talked about that alignment. So from that, under the post-secondary education and training goal, you're going to have your annual goal that supports that right underneath it. The other nice part about the new IEP is that in the present IEP on page 4, in your present levels of performance, you have one box that says parent or student input. There's one little box at the top of page 4. In the new IEP, there's a section on top of the academic goals that are written for parent and student input. There's a section on top of the functional goals that are written for parent and student input. And there's a section on top of the transition for parent and student input. And so there are 3 opportunities for family members and students to give input to the programming that is happening in those areas, all right? So we would identify strengths, we would continue to identify concerns and needs, and then how does that impact the student's involvement in education, okay? When we talk about annual transition goals, we must have one annual goal that is specific for each post-secondary outcome goal statement written. And so we must have an annual goal for employment. We must have an annual goal for post-secondary education and training. And if there is a post-secondary outcome goal in independent living, then we have to have an annual goal for that. So an annual goal is what they're actually working on during that school year. And so, you know, it's what we can reasonably expect them to achieve in that one academic year. And then what objectives are we writing to support them to achieve those, okay? When we're talking about those, they have to be directly related to the concerns and needs. It has to be directly, that alignment needs to be there. And then we also have to see how we're progress monitoring that. How are we knowing if a program is working? What data do we have? What objects do we have? What information do we have that the student is being successful? And so there's a lot more counting on that now than there has been in the past. So the State Department is buckling down on making sure progress monitoring is being done. Okay. And I think I said all of that already. And this is what it looks like, okay? So you have your post-secondary education and training annual goal. It's supported by these short-term objectives down here. Now, standards. We do not have, so The other difference with academic goals is you will see that they must identify a Connecticut course. Let me see, what is it? Connecticut standard, Connecticut core standards. I think it's Connecticut core standards. They must identify a Connecticut core standard that annual goal is supporting. And so they're anchor standards. And so they must look at those. So that's going to be something new in your IEP. But they're only at this point in time identifying academic standards. We do have transition standards, but they're not mandated to be written in. However, I would strongly suggest that we do, because we have them, okay? And they're called our Connecticut Core Transition Skills. So those are Connecticut's standards around transition skills. There are 16 of them. And we have created those through our transition task force with the State Department of Ed. And so that information is there for you. There's a copy of those core transition skills. This will bring you to the link in the State Department's website. Let me see if I can, let me just go there very quickly just to show you if you're not familiar with this website. So this is the State Department's website. And I want to show you this because it's Alicia Tracus, who's our amazing secondary transition consultant at the State Department, has done a wonderful job with updating this website. And so what you have on here is, here are our documents and forms. Here's related services. But what I wanted to show you is there's a section right here that are resources for students and families. And so anytime there's something in Spanish that's available in Spanish, that's also posted up here for you. But here's the core transition skills. And so here's about student success plans, other Connecticut state agencies information here. Here's links to CPAC, kids as self-advocates. So there's lots of resources in here just for families. And so I just wanted to point that out to you. So you have that there. Okay. All right. And then our last part is we look at transition services. So we need to determine where the student is going. That's what we're writing down in those post-secondary outcome goals. Where does a student want to go? Upon exiting school, Missy is going to attend a four-year college. Upon exiting school, Missy is going to become self-employed at her home garden center. Whatever it is that the student wants to do upon exiting. And then what preferences do they have? What instruction related services do we need to provide for them? And what support and services are we providing throughout the year in order to support them with that? Course of study is one way to do that. This is going to be a little bit more detailed in the new IEP. And so the course of study is the description of the coursework or activities needed to assist the student in achieving their post-secondary goals from the student's current year to the anticipated exit year. And so we're going to be looking at more than just one course or two courses, but the whole outline of what the courses are that the student is taking. So this is where our school counselors come into play. They're very important members of our PPT team so that we can have conversations with families and students about what courses they need to take to support them in being successful in their post-school outcome. Okay. Here's our anticipated exit criteria, what that looks like for our student. And so if they're, aging out, they've reached maximum age of eligibility, which remember is up until their 22nd birthday.
Can I just add something about that? Because that might be a point of confusion for families. So there is a specific process and sort of set of qualifications that happen for a student to be eligible through 22. That's not just a standard thing that happens. Typically, we are preparing students for graduation. Again, there are some students that are eligible for that. I just don't want there to be a misunderstanding coming out of this meeting that my child has an IEP, and so that means that they're getting services until 22. And if you have a question about that, that's definitely an appropriate PPT conversation. So.
And that's exactly what it is. It's a PPT decision, right? So whatever decision, and if a student needs to have more support in secondary transition, they're not ready, it doesn't mean that they have to go to school. It may be 1 year, it may be 2 years. It's whatever a student needs or may not need. Our hope is that the transition services are all provided so that they can graduate with their class at age 18 or whatever age they are as a senior. But we all know that for some reason, for some students, it doesn't work that way and they need more time. But that's a PPT decision, and everybody sits around the table with the student, hopefully. And we also know that there are sometimes students that aren't able to have those conversations, and what does that look like? But to the greatest extent possible, we are involving the student in those decisions and what that looks like. But none of this, and that's why it's called the Bill of Rights. So the student has the right to those transition only services. But you do have a PPT, it has to be a PPT decision as to what those rights are and how those rights are going to be outlined for the student. Okay. But when we're talking about age of majority, there are specific guidelines for that. And so if the student, this has always been in the IEP, so at least 1 year prior to reaching the age of 18, the students must be informed of their rights under IDEA and the fact that all of those rights are going to transfer to them at age 18, unless there are some other aspects of guardianship and all of those things that come into play. And so, will the student be 17 within 1 year from today's date? That's the date of the actual PPT meeting. Yes or no, and then data supporting documentation will appear there. Okay. There's some more information on transfer of rights, what that looks like. Again, if there are guardianship issues, if there's power of attorneys, all of those things, there's a link right here to the probate court. We had a great presentation at our last Transition Tuesday through the community of practice, where we had a presentation from a member of the Connecticut Probate Court who did an excellent presentation for us. That information is on our community of practice website, and I'm going to show you that shortly. Summary of performance is something that is done and completed upon when the student exits, before the student exits school. And so there are links here to what that looks like. It is a document that should support the student in going on to college, if indeed they're going on to that, into the world of work, into any adult service program that they're going on to. So that it will be very supportive of all of those programs for a student. Okay. It should address all of these issues within the summary of performance, as well as provide follow-up contact information for the student. Okay, so here are just additional resources for you. This is a great document, and you can find it on our State Department's website. It is an identification of all of the different agencies. There's CPAC and ACEs, all of the rest. CERC is in here someplace. CRAC, DDS is there, the Department of Developmental Services, the contact people that are there. This was just updated, so it should be all set. And then it looks at each of those agencies and different services and who provides what. So it's called Easing into Secondary Transition, a comprehensive guide to resources, and that's on the website. The other thing just for you to be aware of is that 1 year after your student exits high school, they will be getting this post-school outcomes survey. They can complete it electronically or whatever. This is more information about it, but basically what it does is it tells the State Department where the student is. Are they working? Are they in some post-secondary education program? Have they received any adult services? It also gives us an indication, or gives the district an indication as to did the transition services that were provided for them help them get to the post-school outcome that they wanted. And so there are some examples of those surveys on the State Department's website, and there are direct links here for you. And these are just some further resources. Building a Bridge, 2009, it is being updated. I am hoping that that's coming out also in January, but I don't know. It had to be updated further because of the new IEP. And there's our Transition Bill of Rights, which that one is supposed to be out in January. All right, Stepping Forward is a great resource manual. You can find it on the State Department's website as well as the CPAC's website. And it's a great resource for students working with self-advocacy. And here's just some COVID stuff. So I'm extremely excited to announce that our 7th annual Secondary Transition Symposium will be held in 2022. It'll be January 25th in the morning, February 1st in the afternoon, and February 8th in the evening. We have our keynote speaker is Dan Habib, and I'm so excited. Dan will be coming and talking on the 25th in the morning. He will be doing the kickoff action, effective practices and transition. Eric, you need to be there for this. And you need to bring some students. It's virtual, so you don't have to bring them. You can bring us to them. There is a training, a section for breakout sections for families, educators, as well as students. We have a lot of students that are actually doing presentations, both for families as well as for students. I'm not sure if they're doing one for educators. I don't remember. But also on February 8th, Dan Habib is going to be closing out our symposium with us, and he is going to be doing a screening of Intelligent Lives, which is one of his videos. He's going to be facilitating that with us, and we're also going to have 3 of our youth that are going to be working with Dan and giving their opinion of Intelligent Lives. And saying, just talking about how it's relevant for them. So I would strongly suggest that you visit our CERC events page, ctcert.org/events, and you can you register for January 25th. It's free of charge. State Department is wonderful, and they're providing these services for us. And so they you register for the 25th, and then you automatically been registered for all 3 days. Okay. This is our transition community of practice. We've had our first meeting March 3rd. Information around that one, and the theme of that one is going to be employment. And then June 2nd, the theme of that one will be post-secondary education and training. And that you would also register for, although I don't know if the March one is up there yet. Somebody said it wasn't up, but somebody also told me that it's on its way, so I don't know. These are our transition community of practices, our Connecticut Transition Community of Practice, our COP. We had the one on independent living and community participation, which I told you about. The next one is in April. It is a continuation. It's not the same as. Is a continuation of more information about employment, as well as more information about post-secondary education. This is all the info on our symposium. And these are the transition for CPAC, their Transition Tuesday sessions. Okay. What is new this year is that we have RESC Alliance consultants that are at each of the RESCs. So if you have a secondary transition question You can't get a hold of Missy and you can't get a hold of Eric, or Eric, if you can't get a hold of Missy and you have a question, you can contact one of the transition consultants here, specific, although they are hiring a new one at ACES, so Mary Stone isn't going to be doing it. But Maureen, Claudia, Rose, Sherry, Tim, or myself, you can directly contact us if you have a transition question. If they're not able to answer you, then they will get that information from Alicia Tracus at the State Department, and then they will get back to you. Okay.
Just so families know, there are a lot of acronyms in this presentation. Oh, they're just about to cover it, just so they know that our RESC is part of CES.
Okay, so here it is, right there, right? So here you are right here. And let me tell you that here I am way over here. So I'm glad that I didn't have to drive all the way down there tonight, but it is nice being here. That's one nice thing about virtual, although I do like doing my parent sessions in person because I'm not seeing your faces. And so I enjoy seeing people. Okay, so here's our contact information, Level Up services. If you're interested in more of that, you can definitely contact Eric first. But Ruth Carvello is the Level Up supervisor. Laura Knapp is our CPAC, one of our CPAC transition coordinators. Alicia Tracus is our our education consultant, Bureau of Special Ed. She is a wealth of knowledge around transition. And then there's my contact information there. So you're more than welcome to contact me at any time. 7:30 on the dot.
Well done. I'm actually going to stop the presentation just in case there is someone who wanted to ask a question. So let me do that.